What's going on YouTube? This is SG1 Sports and you're watching our Big Ten channel. Going to preview the 2024 schedule for the Ohio State Buckeyes. We're going through every single team schedule, so make sure you keep it right here. Subscribe as we start to break down all these teams in the Big Ten. But before we get to 2024, let's look back at the schedule from 2023. Here is the schedule from last year for Ohio State. You can see just the one loss in the regular season to Michigan. It was a schedule that did see them play Notre Dame in the non-conference. They played out of the West. They played Purdue. They played Wisconsin. They played Minnesota. Played Wisconsin on the road. Thought that might have been a tougher game in the preseason, but Wisconsin not quite as good as I expected. Still a pretty solid team, but it really didn't matter who you played. And I think I've said this before. It didn't really matter who you played out of the West because the West just was not going to be competitive against the Big Three out of the East. But overall, pretty tough schedule with Notre Dame there in the non-conference. But let's look at this 2024 schedule with, of course, the new teams coming into the Big Ten. Before we go game by game, let's break it down and first look at the non-conference. So this is a pretty easy non-conference schedule. Let's be honest here. Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. And it feels like, I haven't gone through every team yet, but it feels like these teams in the Big Ten are kind of taking it easy in the non-conference in year one because you don't know what's going to happen, how things are going to look now with this new Big Ten, with the new 12-team playoff. I don't know what the future is really going to look like in non-conference scheduling. Is it going to make teams want to schedule the big non-conference games, or maybe they shy away from them because they don't want to risk an extra loss now that you have 12 spots to get in the college football playoff? There are different ways of looking at it. I really feel like those non-conference games are a lot of times really more for recruiting. But anyways, that's the non-conference, not bad. And then you go to the home games: Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Iowa, Nebraska, Purdue, Indiana, and Michigan. So 5 games at home in the Big Ten. That means only 4 road games, and with no road non-conference games, that means they only have 4 road games. That's it. So Ohio State, 8 games at home, 4 games on the road. And so those road games will be at Michigan State, at Oregon, at Penn State, and at Northwestern. So a pretty tough road schedule, especially with Oregon and Penn State. Northwestern was a surprise last year. We'll see what they look like this year. And then Michigan State, will they make a big jump this year with a new head coach? That's a pretty tough place to play when they're rolling. So yeah, that's a decent way schedule there for Ohio State. But you look at the big picture here, they will open up with Akron on August the 31st. That'll be a home game again. Western Michigan the next week. So what is really weird about this schedule is they have a bye week in week 3 between Western Michigan and Marshall. That is just strange. I don't know how that happened. I'm sure they would have much rather go ahead and play a Big Ten game right there and then have a bye week later. But that's just the way it worked out. Yeah, Marshall there on September the 21st. And they go on the road to play Michigan State on September 28th. Again, I don't know how good this Michigan State team is going to be, but it is on the road, and maybe they're better than we expect. That could potentially be a challenge, but probably not. Next, you've got Iowa on October the 5th at home. Then they'll play a tough one on the road at Oregon. So, yeah, if I was an Ohio State fan, let's move that Iowa game to week 3 and have a bye week between Michigan State and Oregon on the road. That's definitely what I would prefer. But again, it didn't work out that way. Oregon's going to be a very tough game. These might be the 2 front runners in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Oregon. They might actually play again in the Big Ten Championship. That would not surprise me at all. But that's going to be a very tough game, having to play them on the road. Then they get Nebraska on October the 26th at home. And will the Cornhuskers be any better this year? We'll see. Then actually, between Oregon and Nebraska, they get a bye week. So again, just not ideal for your second bye week before a road game or a home game against Nebraska. I don't know why they got those bye weeks where they did. But after that, they play Penn State. Let's move that bye week. Let's move Nebraska up a week and put a bye week before Penn State. That would be much better. But again, these bye weeks were not very favorable for Ohio State. They'll play Penn State there on November the 2nd. Then Purdue on the 9th at home. Then on the road at Northwestern on the 16th. Back home for Indiana on the 23rd. And they close things out with Michigan on November 30th at home. So again, the schedule, it's not horrible. You hate having Oregon and Penn State and Nebraska. That stretch right there, those 3 games with no bye week, that's going to be the toughest stretch of the season, I would say. And the good news is, they get Indiana before playing Michigan, and it's not that tough of a schedule with an easy non-conference. But The worst part of this schedule is probably the bye weeks, and they definitely did not get very favorable bye weeks, but it is what it is. You know, it's a schedule that definitely gives them a chance to get to the college football playoff, get to the Big Ten championship. What do you guys think about this 2024 schedule? Well, let me know down in the comments below.